Imagine, if you will, a car event run by car enthusiasts for car enthusiasts. An event held at a central location within the country at what is possibly one of the world's best car museums. But it's an event that's not specifically a classic car event or a retro car event, nor is it tailored specifically for modern cars or modified cars or even brand specific, but actually an event to unify all, where it doesn't matter if your car's pristine or clinging on to life, but where the cars all have one thing in common: each and every one are the pride and joy of their owners. An event by a team which comprises of the most influential automotive YouTubers. An event like that would no doubt attract a more diverse range of cars than you're ever likely to see anywhere else. Now, what would you call such an event? Welcome back to another video. You join me here today at Rustival. It's Saturday the 9th of March and we're at the British Motor Museum, a fantastic location. I've visited the museum in the past. Hopefully I'll have a chance to look around there again later today. But at the moment I'm struggling to get around here. I probably won't see all the cars here today. Already I bumped into Glyn. Morning, Glyn.
Hey, morning Mark, nice to see you again.
Some of you may recognise Glyn from some of the previous videos I've done. He did an interview at Photo a few years ago with his Mark 1 Phase 2 Laguna, and more recently last year at Autos de France with the Clio Williams.
It was, yes.
Yeah. Today you brought something a bit different though. It's different in it's not a Renault, it's not French, but it's different to a lot of other vehicles that we see on the road. Fiat Multipla.
Indeed, there is nothing like it. There wasn't at the time, and I don't think there ever has been since, and I can't imagine that there ever will be.
No, it's always been a very controversial looking car, hasn't it? But there does seems to be gaining a bit of a following now.
It does, yes. I think people have realised that there's so few of them left, and whereas modern cars are getting so bland and boring, and this is just so utterly unique and bizarre and out there, that people have started to kind of take notice of them now. Yeah,
obviously one thing there were two things these were sort of famed for in the day. One really unique aspect was obviously this controversial front end styling. Fiat did later address that and made the car look more conventional, and actually then got chastised for doing what people had asked for.
They did. They actually sold less well after they'd done the facelift than with this original kind of bizarre face, so yeah, it didn't quite work out.
It's kind of like they were going to make a conventional sort of saloon or estate car, yes, or hatchback,
yes,
and then they just sort of added a few inches in the middle, didn't they?
They did, yes. Quite how that panned out, I'm not absolutely sure, but the kind of design brief for this car was to provide a car with 6 passengers and space for 6 people's luggage, but it had to be under 4 metres long and using an existing carryover platform, which the designer quite soon realised was an impossible brief.
Yeah.
And the only way he was going to achieve that was basically by going wider and taller, and then I think he went completely rogue and came up with what's almost like a piece of modern art now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The other thing we touched on obviously is the 6 seats. So what's really unique about this MPV is that rather than having 3 rows of seats to keep that length down, they've actually put 3 abreast seating on both the front and second row, haven't they?
It is. So it's actually like driving a bit like driving a van. not exactly, but all the seats will actually come out as well. So I've had all the seats out of it, and you basically got a little van, and you can move all sorts of furniture and all sorts around in it. So
When you say all the seats out, do you just mean the rear bench, or do you mean this?
you could, both all the seats are individual, so they come out. So you can take one out one at a time.
And just have the driver's seat in if you...
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, right.
And the middle ones fold down to make picnic tables as well. So
Right.
it really is quite a practical and ingenious car.
It's a trick that's been missed with this new generation of SUVs. I mean, even the Scenics, the new Scenic, one of those passed me the other day on the motorway, and they're just sort of SUVs, whereas the MPVs of the 90s, you know, in all different sizes, but they were so innovative. You, like you say, you could fold the seats down and make tables and...
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the new ones, that are all sort of SUVs, a lot of them are just like a black hole inside. They don't...
They are absolutely, yeah. There's so many interesting design features on this car as well, with all the lights being different and this kind of bulbous strip.
Yeah.
And the rear lights are kind of like a heart shape with arrows.
Yeah.
With thousands of little bubbles in the lenses as well.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the outside, they went mad on the interior too, didn't they, with the
They did.
with the instrument binnacle and the bright colours everywhere. And
It is the instrument binnacle. It's a bit like looking at Darth Vader's helmet. And again, all the door handles are kind of slightly different to maximise the width inside of the car. The door handles are actually kind of on top of the door casings as well. The doors are actually quite thin if you look at compared to like a conventional car.
Oh, well, I was wondering about that, because obviously when you do sort of cram 3 people in, unless you've got an exceptionally wide vehicle, you can struggle a bit for shoulder room.
It is still quite cosy with 3 people across, but yeah, they've done their best to maximise interior space. But it is about 6 inches wider than a conventional car.
Yeah. Just one last thing before we do move on today, Glyn. The paper bags.
Yes.
Obviously, there's one on there now. I know you had 2 on the seats earlier.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Well, when the car was launched, because it was such a bizarre and wacky design, it did get quite badly ridiculed. So people were quite embarrassed to be seen in one. So there was a bit of a joke about driving around with a paper bag on your head.
Right.
And there's actually a recent magazine article, just in the latest copy of Modern Retro Classic magazine, which does actually feature a person with a bag on their head. So it was just a bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh, really. So
Yeah.
but I
Excellent.
mean, you've got to have a bit of a sense of humour to own one of these cars. So
You're true, but that's what I say, you have a bit of a sense of humour, and the trade-off is you've got a car that's incredibly practical.
indeed, I've had so much in the back of it. So, but yeah, it's because it's quite wide as well. It does actually handle really well. It's great for throwing round corners.
Yeah.
Definitely not built for speed, but it does like backstreet corners like this. So yeah,
I imagine if it's like a lot of 90s cars, it'll probably roll a bit, but have
it does roll a
grip
bit,
with
yes.
real tenacity.
Yes. Yeah, but yeah, certainly an interesting car.
Fantastic. Right, well, thank you very much. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day here. Obviously, there's a heck of a lot more to see, so we'll press on. Well, as expected, there's a really diverse range of cars here. A really interesting one I've just spotted here is a Renault 4. Now, again, Renault 4's are certainly no stranger to the channel, but I do like this one. It's not a pristine example. The car was actually pulled out of a hedge that were destined for scrap, that's now seemingly getting pretty regular use. It's actually got a trailer on the back as well with a moped in, which in itself, the moped looks quite interesting too, but there's owners left a bio in the car. Says the car is used regularly with a trailer for pulling wood around and things like that, which really is what these cars were always about. It was one of Renault's early transitions into cars with the engine at the front. They'd had things like the Frégate before, but predominantly things like the 4CV before that, and the Dauphine, the Renault 8, Renault 10, all had their engines at the back. So this car, we had a longitudinally mounted 4-cylinder engine up front, which did grow in capacity over the years. I think they started quite small, like with 2 CVs, but finished up at with the 1108 engine in the GTL on the later cars. This one a little bit earlier than ones I featured on the channel previously, but fundamentally the same. They didn't really change a great deal. We've still got the hockey stick gear lever that comes through the dashboard, runs along the top of the rocker cover to the gearbox in front, because this is actually a front mid-engine car. Got the engine sort of set back here, gearbox ahead of that driving the front wheels. Also, there's a lot of suspension travel on these cars. The rear suspension in particular is quite interesting. Like with the 16, you've got an offset sort of suspension geometry. It actually leads to an interesting quirk that one wheelbase is actually longer than the other. Just by the design of the rear suspension. The upshot of that is mega suspension travel. These things were fantastic for going off-road. Even today they still hold sort of rallies and things. I think one of these has been entered in the Paris-Dakar as well. Incredibly robust vehicles. If you do want to learn a bit more about Renault 4s, I'd like to suggest a book by Mark Bradbury I actually got for a Christmas present. I met Mark a few times down at the NEC at the Classic Motor Show when he's been doing book signings and things. He's a smashing guy, really friendly, and a really interesting book. So yeah, by all means, if you like your Renault 4s, do check that book out. I don't proclaim to know a great deal about Japanese cars. Anything sort of JDM, modified cars are just something I very rarely feature on the channel. That said, the car here beside me is anything but standard. So we've got a Honda Civic that actually started out life as a Honda Matic. It now has a different engine in there. We've got a Triumph Acclaim engine with a different head. I'm told it runs a higher compression, and it's actually been ran as a drag car in the past as well. Quite a few modifications. We've got some racing bucket seats in there, but there are some things that have been done that, should the owner ever wish to return this to stock, could be done so relatively easily. So we've got a pod in there with some Smith's gauges. The owner has told me that has been installed in a manner into the ashtray in such a way that you could quite easily sort of remove them, put the car back to standard if you so wished. Obviously we've got some aftermarket wheels on there as well, these rather striking decals as well. Headlamps, again, these are an aftermarket modification, just brings the car a bit more up to date, but again, if you've got the original units, would be fairly easy to swap those back again. Something else I've picked up on here, down the bottom here, we've got this splitter that's been put on. Now, I looked at the splitter and I thought, yeah, I'm not sure that actually came on this car as standard, but I did think perhaps there would have been a high performance model and that would have come with it. It looks right. No, that splitter is actually not even off a Japanese car. Any ideas what it's from? Take a guess? No? Dolomite Sprint. Yeah, Dolomite Sprint of all things. But as I say, it looks right, so if it works, why not? Obviously the car's got a bit of patina as well. I'm told that when these left the factory there was basically primer and then one top coat of paint, that was it. So apparently they are prone to wearing quite thin on the paint. But again, you know, the owner's quite happy with the patina on it, and again he did say at some point maybe he will consider getting the car repainted. And should be hardly surprising, being that we are at the British Motor Museum. We've got a nice collection of Morris Minors here. Obviously you don't go to many classic car show either where you don't see them, but great to see we've got a convertible, a Woody and a saloon variant as well. When was the last time you saw this generation of Fiat Ibiza? This is a really nice looking example as well. These were a real sort of interesting alternative to some of the other hot hatches like your Golf and things back in the day. It's been a long time since I've seen one as good as this. MGF next to it as well. I really do think these original MGFs are a lot prettier than the later MGTFs. And again, quite fitting to see one of these here today, obviously being that we're at the British Motor Museum. Another car on the endangered species list, Alfa Romeo GTV6. I adore these cars, the 916 GTVs. It's absolutely stunning. I love when this bonnet's down. You've just got this sort of quad headlamps that poke through. But the real showpiece on these is that Busso V6. These sound phenomenal. It's probably one of the nicest sounding engines in any car, period. But when you've got one that's as nice as this as well, that's really detailed, they're just an absolute work of art with those polished manifolds and everything on there. That red Alfa Romeo script on there really is something to behold. And how about this for a rare gem? I don't think I've actually seen one of these before. Maserati bi-turbo 430 with a 2.8 litre V6. These are incredibly luxurious cars. Cars don't even remember really seeing much on our roads in period, let alone now. This is a right-hand drive one as well. Quite often when I have seen similar things to this, there'll be left-hand drive cars. So yeah, a real rare sight, and yeah, I think even today you'd feel quite special behind the wheel of one of those. Obviously Maserati did do the bi-turbo we're probably more familiar with is the sort of two-door coupe style body. This obviously a four-door saloon. It's surprisingly compact as well. Certainly looks smaller than say your Quattroporte, for example. Well, take a look at this Fiat 127 Sport. These were sort of one of the early sort of small hatchbacks, quite a successful car actually. Obviously this is the Sport one with 70 horsepower, which might not sound a lot now, but back in the day in a car that is as light as what this probably is, that would have been added up to quite some interesting performance. It would have been a good fun little car. I've also got to mention this rather unassuming looking Vauxhall Corsa. So obviously it's a Corsa B, a pre-facelift one as well. So again, don't see many of these about. A fairly mid-range LS spec. This particular one is a three-door body style as well. One of the first sort of small hatches I remember were they did more than just change the number of doors. Things like the tailgate's a little bit different, and the tail lights between the 3 and the 5 door models. Again, very popular little cars. I know some people prefer the more boxy styling of the Nova, this car's predecessor, or Corsa A in some markets. But no, these were very much of the time, with the sort of curvy styling and these wheel arch spats. The cars did get a very minor facelift later, with a slightly different grille and a few other things. Now, again, I'm not really a Vauxhall fan as such, but like many people, I learnt to drive in a Vauxhall Corsa B. A lot of people had these as sort of first and second cars as well, so I know there'll be a lot of people nostalgic about these cars. One car that seems to have enjoyed a bit of a renaissance in recent years is the Austin Metro, British Leyland's car to take on the world. And in 1980 it really did look like that was going to be the case. It was initially very successful. A few years on though, other cars came to market that made it look a little bit dated, and the Metro did gain a bit of a reputation as being one of those cars that, well, it just weren't considered a particularly cool car. But things definitely seem to be on the up. These are, as I say, getting a real following now. This is actually one of the early cars, a Mark 1. This one in HLE spec. Now, my dad actually had a Mark 1 Metro in this very same colour, this sort of tomato, orange, reddy colour. Again, any BL fans out there that know the exact colour, by all means drop it in the comments. This one's actually quite a bit plusher than the car my dad had though. My dad's was a base model car, so it had the recessed headlamps and everything, unlike this car that's got the smoother headlamps with the integrated indicator. But like I say, the cars did evolve a little bit over the years. Things like this fuel filler that slowed down. There was instances of fuel spilling out going around corners, for example, so that got moved up. The dashboard was revised, and then obviously the biggest revision came in the 1990s with the Rover Metro, which was the first time the car's actually got a 5-speed gearbox, and probably was everything that the Metro should have always been. Sadly, by that point it was an ageing body shell, and by the end of the 1990s, that Euro NCAP test that we all remember, that was the final nail in the coffin, sadly, for the Metro. But it's great to see that so many people are passionate about them these days. As I say, despite the reputation, we really did buy these by the millions. Anyone that's not from the UK probably won't be used to seeing them, but on the streets of Great Britain, these were everywhere back in the day. So I'm with fellow Renault Owners Club member Roy. Roy's got one of these Mark 1 Renault 5s here now. This particular model is a Gordini, so that's a Gordini, not an Alpine.
Yeah, Alpine for the French market, Gordini for the UK market, because of Talbot having the Talbot Alpine. Yeah,
now that's obviously something I was aware of, but what I didn't know is there were other markets outside the UK that also had Gordini.
Yeah, Malta, I think, Gibraltar, and strangely Switzerland, who had a left-hand drive Gordini.
Oh right, so they'll be really rare and unique then.
And they were all white.
Oh right, okay.
Just an oddball market, something to do with the European Union at the time.
Yeah. Now, you were saying obviously this one being a Gordini, there's a few differences. So the standard cars obviously had fair bit of body roll. This one's a little bit different underneath, isn't it?
Yeah, they're lower, the torsion bars are stiffer, the anti-roll bars are stiffer, even the suspension wishbones are reinforced, and then they put a rear anti-roll bar on as well to try and limit the body roll and make it into more of a sports hatch.
Yeah, and you're saying it's even beyond that, there are so many sort of differences. Wheel hubs you were talking about?
Hub bearings are different, they're 12 to make them bigger, the drive shafts are unique. The front end of the body shell's cut away to get the 5-speed box in, and then when you get onto the engine's unique to this model and the turbo.
Yeah.
The head's different to the point that because it's a cross-flow head, the spare wheel on most of them lives under the bonnet, but on these they all live in the boot.
Right.
There's no room for a spare wheel.
So it's a 1397, but other than the capacity, everything else is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole top end is completely unique to the model.
These were one of the sort of early super minis, very successful car. Sadly, Bouillet, who designed the car, he didn't live to see the car go into production, did he?
No, unfortunately not.
No, but if he was around today to see how successful the car's been, obviously there's a huge buzz around Renault 5 at the moment, with Renault announcing the unveiling the new electric model, which I think it's probably going to be 2025 when that car actually goes on sale. But obviously heavily styled around this original, but mechanically completely different. Just a few interesting details on this car. We've got these lovely slotted wheels. These look fantastic, so period.
Yeah.
Now you were mentioning about the centre of the hub on these.
They're designed to match the Alpine A310, which was the equivalent, the sports, the two-seater sports model. On the French car, they have an A machine or cast into the middle because they had to take every Alpine mark off it. These have a plain, just a machined hub centre. Same with the rocker cover where they machined the Alpine name off.
Yeah.
It's just that those subtle differences to differentiate the brand.
You did mention, Roy, this car, obviously, someone came up, off camera, were having a look and were quite excited because their first car was a Renault 5, and you remarked and said, mine too. This exact car is...
This is my first car. I didn't want a Renault 5, but my brother wanted one. He bought it, and then when he decided to get rid of it, my nan bought it from him because I'd passed my driving test. So she bought the car from him, handed it to me. So it's kind of, I ran it and broke it, ran it and broke it, ran it and broke it, and then it's now, just a toy and something to have as a memory.
Yeah, it's great, and the fact that it still gets used as well. But I say it's just remarkable that people have these cars, they let them go, and then they look for another one. But you've actually kept your first car. I mean, like yourself, I didn't go out to buy a Renault 5 as my first car, but ended up with a Super 5 as my first, and only had it a year, replaced nearly every moving part on it. But what I wouldn't give to have that car back now.
Yeah, you can't buy those memories again.
No.
And it's, I've done Le Mans with this, with my children, I've done Spa circuit with my daughter, and it's those things that you just always have. And when you look around the car at certain dents and scratches, you remember, oh yeah, I did that one 12 years ago, or I did that one doing this, and it's just, you can't replace those memories.
It's more the preservation now, just making sure you do enough to stop it rotting away, but enough to keep it going.
Yeah, and I always thought I could take it off the road for, maybe do a 2-year restoration and get it perfect. But that's 2 years of not driving it.
Yeah.
And I don't want 2 years of not using it. But I also never want to be in that stage where you're scared to take it out. And
There is that, yeah.
You look at some restorations and you don't want to park it in a supermarket. You don't want to drive it on a day when it's raining.
Yeah.
This goes out, whatever the weather, and if it gets a dink or a scratch, it's just another one.
Yeah, and it's only original once, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Well, that's smashing, Roy. Thanks very much. It's been great getting an insight into these cars. Much more information than I would have known about these, so that's fantastic. Okay. Right, thank you. Well, I hope you're enjoying my coverage of Rustival so far. If you are doing, please feel free to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. Now before we move on to the next section of this video, I just wanted to address one of the comments that you've no doubt been hearing in the aftermath of this event, that being that there were so many fantastic things to see and so many people to meet that people simply struggled to get around the entire event. Probably none more so than myself, who struggled to actually get much beyond this first section of car park where my vehicle was parked. So many great vehicles back to back. Things like this Ford Probe, for example, never really all that common in period, and certainly not now, and this one just so happened to be a V6 version as well. This has to be one of the last cars from a mainstream manufacturer to feature pop-up headlights. And by contrast, right next to that, we have this rather interesting looking Land Rover Freelander. But can you guess what's hidden in the shadow of this vehicle? If you said Nissan Figaro, you would be correct. The K10 Micra with a body that looks like a 1950s sports car. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe these were ever available in the UK, so highly likely a grey import from Japan. I mean, where would you ever go where you would see a muscle car next to a small Japanese car, next to a Land Rover, next to a sports coupe that never sold in big numbers? I must admit though, as I get older, gems like this Morgan three-wheeler are increasingly appealing. Open top three-wheeler sports car, I mean, how much fun would this thing be out on the road? And you've got to admire that craftsmanship. I mean, look at that polished bodywork and that quilted interior. You can really see that some man hours have gone into the production of this vehicle. You've got to love this combination of classic styling with the wire wheels and that engine that's slung out front, but in a vehicle that's evolved over many, many decades to become what it is today. Around every corner, behind every vehicle, there was something else interesting and unique. By mid-afternoon, when I made it up to the Mayfair parking area, many of the vehicles had sadly already left, but luckily there were still a few gems that could be found. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. Well, here we have a Trabant 601. I've actually featured a saloon Trabant on the channel before, one certainly a lot more standard than this. That was a saloon version. This one actually is the sort of two-door estate version. Now, for anyone who doesn't know the Trabant, there was an East German car. Again, I'm not infallible, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Duraplast, I think, was the material these were made out of. It was sort of some sort of resin with horsehair or some bizarre concoction. But yeah, that's how they made the bodies for these cars. And the engines, again, they were sort of quite rudimentary, a two-stroke engine. The fuel basically was gravity fed from above the engine. There was actually a tap inside the on the dashboard to open the fuel. A very very strange setup and beggars belief in this day and age, but that's what they were like. Obviously the cars, when they sort of launched, you know, they were very popular. There was a very long waiting list in East Germany for any car. These continued in production for a long time, and by the end of it, even though they'd sort of been updated, they were very outdated compared to their Western counterparts. Today though, there is quite a cult following for the cars, and as I say, this particular one here is looks to be extensively modified. It's certainly an eye-catching vehicle. I love how on the luggage and on the back of the car we've got the old DDR, the Deutschland Democratic Republic emblem on there as well. But yeah, when anyone that remembers the scenes in '89 when the wall came down and people went from East Berlin into West, you just saw a sea of Trabants and clouds of blue smoke. Well, as expected, Matt Richardson has provided a selection of his fleet here today. Some cars I've seen before, like his Volvo. Some that I've not actually seen previously, like his very early R50 BMW Mini. That's a wire edge car, so one of the very first pre-production cars. The Alfa Romeo 145, again, one of his fleet that I've not seen before, even though he's had that car for quite a while now. It's a stunning example as well, with the Momo leather and everything in there. The teledials on it, it just looks right. A more recent acquisition though, Unos Roadster. So the Unos being the Japanese market version of the MX-5. I believe generally these were sort of a bit better equipped than our cars here in the UK. This one's got this lovely wood steering wheel in there, and the leather as well on that interior. Yeah, really nice looking car. Looks right in this green as well, doesn't it? Obviously the Unos MX-5 Miata, they basically took inspiration from the old British sports cars, but mixed with some Japanese reliability. The British sports car was pretty much almost killed off in the 1980s by the rise of the hot hatch. The MX-5 Unos Miata, it really did remind us that there was still life in the two-seater Roadster. Oh boy, have we got a real rare treat for you here behind me. Anyone guess what this car is behind me from its butterfly doors? Toyota Sarah, or Sarah, or however it's pronounced. Never seen one of these before? Well, hardly surprising. Again, another car we didn't get in the UK. I believe Japanese only market. So basically a compact coupe. These rather unique butterfly doors, very similar to like what you'd find on the McLaren F1. It may look a sporty little car. I don't know whether that would translate in the drive though. This is an automatic. I'm not sure if they even did a manual in these or not. If they did, they're probably quite rare. Japan do tend to favour automatics, I believe. I've on occasion seen the odd one of these around in the UK, but this is the first time I've sort of seen one at a show and been able to actually get up close to one. I'm struggling to get round because the sheer number of people here that I know that I don't see on a regular basis. Another one is Davey. Now, you might have seen Davey on the channel before when I've interviewed him with I think it was the Cactus last time, weren't it?
Cactus in the 75 last
The 75, yeah, before that. Obviously, Davey's recently acquired another car, which I've been quite interested to see. Mark 5B Escort.
Right.
These weren't, from memory, these weren't around very long, were they?
No, I think they were available between 92 to 95, something like that.
Right.
It wasn't a very long time.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought it was even less than that.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm no expert on Fords though, but yeah, I remember. So obviously what we had is the Mark V, which, as a quick recap, back in the day, the press absolutely, well, they completely really slated the Mark V Escort. The British public, however, bought them in droves, didn't we? They were incredibly popular, sold really well. Ford did the Mark V, the B facelift, so we got, that's when we first saw these extended rear light clusters. We've still got the Mark V body shell, things like the door mirrors, the dashboard and everything, that's still the original Mark V. But the grille on the front, that was the other big change on this car, weren't it? We saw the oval grille for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's like part of sort of Ford family face at the time.
Yeah, I remember the Scorpio that was very controversial.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan, but I am now.
No. The treatment on the Escort though was a bit more subtle, weren't it? I think it was a bit kinder than the face that ended up on the Scorpio. Now, obviously this one is a diesel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the 1.8 diesel.
Normally aspirated?
No, it's the turbo one.
Oh right, turbo, okay. Being a diesel, it's probably worked in your favour because you've driven this car a hell of a long way, haven't you, to come here today? You've come from Edinburgh.
Yeah, probably the longest drive it's done since 1997.
Yeah, how many miles is that then?
320.
320. And then another, that was yesterday.
That was yesterday.
And you've got the 320 mile return trip at the end of today.
That's right, yeah.
So how did the car cope with the journey then?
Just drove like a normal car, like a modern car, kept up with traffic.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I think the run actually done it some good because it did feel a wee bit livelier towards the end of the journey. It felt a bit more lively. As if
What do you think it's doing miles per gallon then?
probably something like about 45, 46.
So this particular car is quite a low miler as well, isn't it? And you mentioned there's a bit of a story.
Yeah, so the story of this car, it started in 1994 when it was rolled off a forecourt in a garage in Guildford in Surrey. I then think it got sold within the Ford Direct scheme, which was like the sort of a approved used car scheme.
Okay.
And it ended up in Aberdeenshire.
Right.
That's probably sometime between 94 and 97. The tax ran out in January 1997, before the car was even 3 years old, and it went off the road until 2021.
Right.
Then went to a place in Stornoway where it was recommissioned, and ended 21, started 22. And from Stornoway it went to a garage in Edinburgh where I bought it.
Right.
In 23, October 23.
It's good to see that the car's now back out, it's seeing the light of day, and that it's getting used as it always was intended to be.
I think you should use a car. There's no point in just keeping it parked up. I try and bin it out every couple of days. I don't use it every day. And once the Edinburgh emission zone comes in June, I won't be able to take it to my work. So I do get the occasional pleasure of taking this to my work.
Well, presumably you live on the outside of the zone then?
Yeah, just live on the outside.
Excellent. Well, I will leave you to it, Davey. Obviously, you're going to be quite busy here. Davey's got a YouTube channel as well, Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV. Although Davey might not go into the same detail on certain cars as I am in my videos, chances are you'll probably see a lot more of the cars that are here at the show today.
Yeah, I'm trying to help Joseph Lloyd out. He can't be here today, so I'm doing a traumatic walk around in his honour. So.
Oh right, okay, excellent. That's great. Right, well, thank you very much, Davey, and I'll leave you to crack on.
Thank you, Mark.
A lovely little Mini here. We've got a roll cage in that one as well. Another car that's caught my attention, Ford Puma. One of actually a couple I've seen so far. I think there was, looked like there might have been a Millennium one somewhere around as well. Do like the Puma. I've actually had the pleasure of reviewing a Puma very recently on the channel. A silver one with a 1.7 engine as well, which crucial is one of the things with the Puma. That 1.7 is a fantastic engine. If ever you get the opportunity to have a drive of one of these original Pumas, I highly recommend you do so. Behind me we've got a lovely Rover P4. May look familiar to some of you. This is owned by Alex from Alex's Assets. Alex actually does use this car quite a bit and has done some videos maintaining the car and things as well. So I was quite looking forward to seeing this one. It's just a really good, honest, car that's in regular use. This caught my eye this morning when it drove in. Having never seen one before, it's a Citroen GS, but it's a van version. Really interesting to see this. There are a lot of other interesting Citroens here as well. We've got a Visa over there in the background. I was looking at a lovely example of a ZX earlier, and I know for a fact there's a couple of BXs here. There's one that's behind me, which is a 16 valve, but there's just so many cars here that I can't get round. A Lotus over there, a lovely early 911 I've seen, a couple of Hillman Imps as well. So many fabulous cars. Well, a car that a lot of people probably don't get excited about, but I certainly did when I saw it. There's another Phase 1 Renault Megane here today. Really didn't expect to see one. Okay, granted, it's not a coupe like mine. This is actually the 5-door hatchback, and this is an RN with a 1.4 energy engine, so pretty much the base model. This car does obviously have sunroof, which will have been a factory option, but yeah, just really interesting to see it here. Another interesting fact, I've actually just had a quick chat with the owner of this car. It's a young driver, only 18 years old, that has got this car, so really good to see that we've got a younger generation of drivers that are so interested in cars of this era. I think that's fantastic. Now we've got a lovely Mark 1 Renault Clio on a K-plate, so you're looking around sort of 92, 93. This is an RT spec, so relatively middle of the range. However, when these cars were launched, the RT was initially the top of the range model before we got things like the Bacara RSI 16 valve and of course the Williams. So yeah, relatively plush spec. We've got a velour upholstery in there. You gain things like the rev counter, the sunroof, body colour bumpers, which weren't fitted on the models below this. Front fog lamps as well. So yeah, a really good spec car. This one I think has got the 1.4 litre energy engine in there, about 80 horsepower, which again for the time was quite respectable. This particular one is fitted with an automatic gearbox. Sadly, most of the ones that survive seem to be automatics, with the exception of obviously the hot ones. Whether that's down to the cars maybe being bought by an older buyer and cherished and just not driven as much back in the day, perhaps, I don't know. This one's a 3-door as well. Again, there was available as a 3 or a 5-door. So again, quite nice to see this spec of car in the 3-door with this grey paintwork as well. Yeah, really nice example as well. Another JDM car that we've got here behind us, Nissan Elgrand. Now, these I don't believe were ever sold officially in the UK. But that said, when I'm out and about working, driving the truck, I've actually seen a fair few of these out on our roads. Obviously very popular, incredibly practical vehicle as well. But yeah, they've quite a lot of them have sort of modified. They really do seem to go to town on them. This one's got a fantastic interior with leather and all sorts of electronics and things in there. But they've even got this one set up with a bed in there. But yeah, like many MPVs of its day, very practical. It's a good size, and this one looks to be very, very well equipped. If you want to see a bit more of this vehicle, there's actually seems it belongs to a YouTuber, Adventures with Ellie. So by all means, if Elgrand's are your sort of thing, maybe have a look at that one. And hiding next to the Elgrand, one of the brightest cars here, my Megane 1.6e Fiji. Obviously, you may have seen my recent video where I've been doing a heater matrix on this car, which wasn't a fun job at all. Also had the privilege of driving a 2-litre 16-valve F7R recently as well, so again, another video you may wish to check out. As always, I've rushed around. In fact, I've spent most of the day in this one section of car park and missed quite a lot of other vehicles. I have tried to rush around and get a few things, but we're at that point of the day now where a lot of people are leaving. But to be honest, I've enjoyed just having the opportunity to meet up with so many people, channel viewers. Obviously, there are a lot of other YouTubers here today as well, so it's been great to catch up with a few people. I will catch you on the next video soon. I'm hoping to get out a review of the Mark IV Megane soon, because a few people have asked for that. Also in the process of booking a few sort of more retro cars for review, and of course show season is upon us in the very near future as well, so we're going to get more and more videos like this one. Thanks again for watching. As always, comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, and I will catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.